What up, homie G's? How you guys doing? Welcome back to the channel. We've got something I learned from PBD, Patrick David. I've been following him a long time on Value Entertainment. One of my favorite podcast, YouTuber, content creator guys. Dude is a total winner. He's a great public speaker. Reminds me a little bit of my dad when I was a kid. My dad would do motivational speaking, public speaking for different events. Patrick McDavid presents information very much like he does. So, but I've always liked PBD. He's like the Joe Rogan of Florida. And if you're familiar with him, he built and sold a insurance company. I believe it was a life insurance company. Over a 10-year run or something like that. Sold it for north of 200 million, a little less than 300 million. Did well on it. Approached the industry very differently in an area where it's kind of been the same demographic of an insurance agent has been the same. He flipped it on its head. He found out he basically went after like the Latino market, hired a bunch of Latinos, particularly a lot of women, and which is, ordinarily it's like a white male industry, and they blew it up to $200+ million. I mean, that's just really interesting, kind of doing a little contrarian play. And now he's building a media company. I think he's going to be in our lifetimes. I think that the McDavids are going to be a big time American family. But he gave me a mental model where he had a piece of content on how wealthy families increase their wealth. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm interested in this. One of the big hacks was life insurance. And so I'm actually going out to my place now. I've got a medical examiner that's coming out. I've got to take urine sample, blood sample, weight, height measurements, stuff like that. Because I'm getting a new life insurance policy. And the reason I'm doing this is, one, I have kids. So if something happens to me and I'm not able to provide for them, I want to make sure that they're good. I want to make sure like my kids, my wife are good. PBD was talking about how wealthy families will use this as a way to just increase wealth. So for example, they'll put life insurance policies on everybody. And obviously you don't want anything to happen to your family members. But in the event that it does, it just increases the wealth of the family. So for example, I'm going to get a $2 million policy. It's like $70 bucks a month. I don't know what the term is on it. Maybe a 20-year term. I'm not a fan of whole life. It's kind of like a scam. But like I'm term life, I'm a fan of that. And so it's like 70 bucks a month. So 800 bucks a year. Cover my family for $2 million if something happens to me. If it's an accidental death, sometimes they double it up. It's a $4 million payout, which is kind of crazy. I'm going to then, as I increase my income, add additional policies. So I'm going to add another, with other providers, not just one provider, because something could happen to that provider. They're an insurer, but if you just happen to be, and life insurance is one of those things that you buy not for you, which is interesting because you spend money on it in something that you're never going to see a return on. But I want to make sure that my kids are set up in a way where it's like, if something does happen to dad, they're set. Like they're literally good to go. And I've got a plan for where those funds would go, how they would be invested, when the kids could be able to touch them, what type of cash flow. Basically, I'd set up a cash flow situation for them, and that would allow that cash flow to continue to grow. I have certain guys that I trust that I've discussed with them, and I need to actually get it like really official. Need to get it written down, get a lawyer involved with it, unfortunately, and then make sure my wife understands the plan. So like, hey, in the event of my death, this is what we do. This is like, this money goes there, this money goes there. You're gonna get a cash flow from here, and then here's how everything gets divvied out. And but what I'm going to do as I increase my income this year is I'm going to add additional policies. So I'll add $1 million policy. Maybe I'll add another, a $500,000 policy. I'll stack policies and probably get to the spot where I have 5 or 10 mil on top of me, where it's like, in the event, like I think I'm worth way more to my family. I get the comment like, bro, your wife's going to off you, I think I'm way more. I think she knows like, over a 30-year run, yeah, five mil's nothing. I'll easily produce that. I'll produce that like by the end of the decade, like that's for sure. But in the event of an untimely death, I can change the class structure of my offspring, where it's like I grew up middle class, and you know, they're currently on the upper end of middle class as far as like our net worth. If something happens to me, I want to make sure that they're in the upper class, you know. And life insurance, PBD was explaining, as a way that you can make that happen. It's a tool that you can make that happen. Likewise with my wife. If something happens to my wife, my child care costs are going way up. Like, I'm gonna have to figure out, like, I'm gonna have to build a mother-in-law suite, and, you know, have her mom move onto the property, build her like something. I'm gonna have to do something. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have to have a full-time nanny. I'm gonna have to do something. And so PBD was talking about the amount of life insurance. I mean, the guy's worth $200+ million. He's talking about the amount of life insurance he has just on him. Where he's like, yeah, I got life insurance on all my family members, all of them. So that, you know, people are being born, people are passing away. But like the McDavid family is just gonna keep on collecting, and just gonna and just keep on like increasing that nest egg for the family. Like, you know, in a way in which he's gonna continue to I mean, you live on through your kids, you know. I think it's so funny that you get guys now that are like, I want to live forever with these blood transfusions, and they're just doing weird stuff, you know. And it's like, you know, life extension and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, we have that. It's called children. You know, I see a lot of 25-year-olds like, do you have kids? Oh no, why would I have kids? It's like, because you're 25. Like, yeah, you know, like, when do you think you're gonna start having kids? Like 50? Yes, you know, like, we just live in interesting times, but I think it's an interesting concept, and something that I should have done a lot earlier, because it makes total sense. Where it's like, yeah, you stack policies on yourself, you have a plan on where those funds go, and if something happens to you, you made it. Like, your kids are still in a great spot, you know, and then you have to figure out like how not to wreck them. How not to make them trust fund kids where they didn't earn it and all of a sudden they came into it. So you've got to have a plan on where those funds go, so they don't just get wasted off. But an interesting concept shared by Patrick Bet-David, and he had all sorts of. I'll try to link to that video he had on it. And he had all sorts of examples, and it's just something that super high net worth families do, even though they don't need it. You know, like, something happens to Patrick, his family's going to be fine. But he's basically like, for the cost I can spend monthly to have an insurance policy on me that will pay out multiples of what I put into it, why wouldn't I? You know, why wouldn't I set up my family for that, or set up my trusts for that, or set up, you know, my nonprofits, or whatever it is. So something that you know, something I wanted to put out there to you guys, because a lot of you guys, like, we just had Coach Kurt just had a guy at his daycare. He's got a 4-year-old son, and they both go to this daycare. One of the other students, 4-year-old guy, his dad was in a motorcycle wreck last weekend, dead. You know, I'm a guy that has had motorcycles. I've got mini bikes right now. I ride them on private roads. I'm a fan of motorcycles. With a 4-year-old, it's like, I sold mine when my daughter was 2. I was like, yeah, I had one car pull out in front of me. I was like, yeah, I've been lucky up to this point. But maybe he has a life insurance policy, maybe he doesn't. Hopefully he does, because that 4-year-old's now grown up without dad, which is rough. You know, that's a rough situation. So his dad's not there to provide for him. His dad was the guy that picked him up, you know, from school and stuff like that. And Kurt was just talking like, yeah, he's like, man, it's a mind twister, dude, because, you know, we know this guy, you know, we see him at pickup, you know, it's a guy we see every day, and just gone. So, you know, those things happen, and food for thought. Love you guys. See you in the next one.